This is a magical place that for 4 years has nurtured, challenged, motivated, and empowered you. You've mastered academic rigor of the highest degree, enriched with countless deeply meaningful conversations that have changed your minds and changed the minds of others. You've developed an insatiable curiosity, intellectual curiosity, that will lead to a lifelong love of learning. You've trayed down the hill, rolled hoops, stepped, sung, laughed, cried, and grown, all with friends who I am confident you will treasure for life. And today, you've earned a diploma that codifies not just how much you know, but it also reflects who you have become. Now, when I think back on my own college days compared with yours, there are a few things that are different. I wore bell-bottoms, you wear skinny jeans. I listened to Diana Ross, still do. You danced to Beyonce. When I was in college, we didn't have cell phones or even call waiting, which made it easy to duck calls you didn't want to have. A tumbler was something that we used for cocktails. The only Facebook page that I had was in my yearbook, and Congress was full of too many men who thought they should decide how to make decisions for women. Well, I guess some things haven't changed. So today is, of course, your commencement, a new beginning of the next phase of your life. And if you're feeling anything like I was in my early 20s, you're a little bit uncertain about what lies ahead. The truth is, you're going to have your ups and downs. You're going to fail, you're going to succeed. But I hope that you'll discover, sooner rather than later, how to live life on your terms. And to get started, I'll share some of the advice from lessons that I've learned, often the hard way, along my journey since I was in your seats a long, long, long time ago. So, let's begin. First, you gotta be flexible. If you're willing to be flexible, you will find your true passion. So don't restrict your options and limit your potential with arbitrary, self-imposed deadlines. During my senior year of college, I made what I thought was the perfect plan. First, I'd head straight to law school. Then I would find and marry the love of my life by the time I was 26. Have my first baby by 30, ever mindful of my biological clock, and make partner at a great law firm by the age of 31. That was my plan. Well, I went straight to law school. I married the figurative boy next door. After practicing for 3 years at an excellent law firm, I moved to another firm that I thought was even more prestigious. My daughter was born just before my 29th birthday. Right on schedule, huh? Well, not so fast. By 30, I was separated from my husband, and the same year, I clearly remember sitting in my lovely office with a magnificent view and staring at a very lucrative paycheck and bursting into tears because I was miserable. So I had a decision to make. Keep following my plan, that perfect plan, or be honest with myself and search for my true passion. A year earlier, at the recommendation of Jean Allard, a senior woman partner at my firm and my first real mentor, I had participated in a Young Leaders program that exposed me to a diverse range of business and civic and political leaders, all working to make Chicago better. That experience motivated me to finally consider public service. So I took a leap of faith, and I began my career in the public sector. I moved out of that cushy office and into a tiny cubicle with a view facing an alley. But from my very first day, I knew that I was right where I belonged. And as a bonus, 4 years later, I hired a brilliant young lawyer with whom I instantly bonded because she too had become disenchanted with the law firm life, and she wanted to serve her community. Her name was Michelle Robinson. And when we met, she was engaged to this skinny guy with a funny name named Barack Obama. And the rest, well, you know the rest. Now, I'm not promising that if you join local government that you'll make friends with the future president of the United States of America, But I do encourage you all to consider public service at some point in your career, either through a full-time government position or through part-time community service. Goodness knows we would all be a lot better off if there were more women in Congress. But the lesson really is it is so healthy to explore so that you may discover unanticipated detours that will actually hasten your achievement of your dreams. Do not blindly ignore opportunities to change course, and certainly do not let others impose their priorities on you. Right. From the neurobiologist who becomes an author of children's books, to the editor of Law Review, who I know so well, who decided to run for state senate, to the mother of 3 who decides to go back to school when her children are older because she always dreamed of being a doctor, to the mom or dad who decides to scale back their responsibilities at work in order to spend more time with their children. These are not decisions that should be judged by others. These are decisions that reflect the choices that people make living their own lives. But to do this requires you to push beyond that comfort zone and to be resilient, which is my second lesson. Please be resilient. I guarantee that everyone here who challenges the status quo, you're going to face criticism, you're going to face disappointment and setbacks. Change is hard, very hard, as we have learned. You'll make mistakes, you'll fail, you'll face rejection. In fact, if you never slip and fall, I would say that you're being too cautious. Don't let fear debilitate you. And, for example, I used to be petrified of public speaking. Hard to believe, right? I avoided it at all costs until I landed a big job where one of my principal responsibilities was public speaking. Well, fear of failure motivated me to practice over and over and over again, and slowly I began to realize that just because I was nervous did not mean I had to show it. And over time, what once took courage, I now enjoy. And you don't have to turn every one of life's injustices into a thing. No matter how hard you may try, not everyone is going to like you or even like what you have to say or show you the respect that you have shown one another during your time here at Wellesley. I remember this every single time I look at my Twitter feed, which is daily. You will inevitably encounter people, both professionally and in your personal life, who try to shine at your expense and undermine you wherever they can. They'll deliberately try to hold you back and break your spirit. Be patient, keep focused on doing your best, shrug, laugh, bounce back, and over the long haul, you'll earn your colleagues' respect, your bosses will recognize your talents, and your true friends will reveal themselves. And if they don't respect you after you've given it a fair shot, go back to lesson number 1. Be flexible, move on, prove them wrong. The best possible revenge is success. You're going to discover criticism is just a necessary price that you pay for success. My dear friend, some of you may have heard of, Sheryl Sandberg. She wrote a book intended to stimulate a broader conversation around the importance of women leaning in. Now, she has had to withstand an avalanche of criticism, some of it from people who I'm not actually sure have even read her book. But the conversation has begun, and the book is a bestseller. That's success. You will also inevitably face adversity. I know that you have suffered the loss of a classmate this year, and perhaps other loved ones during your short life. And the world watched the Boston Marathon bombing with horror. And as a mom, I wish I could spare you from the inevitable pain that you're going to face. But what always amazes me is the resilience of the human spirit. In class of 2013, your spirit will always be stronger because of the relationships that you have formed right here. Right here. And it's the importance of relationships that brings me to my third and final point. Pace yourselves. For those of you who are wondering if you can have it all, the answer is yes, but there is a catch. The arc of life is long, so don't expect to have it all at the same time. Just as you must affirmatively choose to follow your passion and develop a very thick skin, you may also have to adjust your lifestyle if, for example, you decide to switch careers and begin working your way to the top again. You may decide not to have children because you love the fast pace and you want to travel with your job. You may see some of your classmates achieve success in their careers faster than you because you decided to stay home with your children for a few years. Don't look at your decisions as sacrifices. They are choices that just simply illustrate your priorities. You have choices because you stand on the shoulders of others who have given you the ability to choose. It is a rare privilege for all of you who are seated here today. So make sure that you reach back and afford others that same opportunity. We must also recognize that we are human. Am I the first to tell you that? We're not actually superhuman. We might be a tad bit better than men, but we're not superhuman. Had to say that. So don't be your own worst enemy. When my generation finished college, many of my classmates, both men and women, thought that earlier generations of women had led demonstrations and forged court battles and blazed trails and broken glass ceilings, all so that we women could compete equally with men in the workplace, while also continuing the traditional role of being the primary person responsible for taking care of our children, parents, and men. That was the wrong lesson. That was the wrong lesson. I spent my 20s and 30s taking great pride in trying to be superwoman, proving to both myself and to others that I could do everything. Most days I felt I was barely holding on by my fingertips, in fear of dropping one of the thousands of balls I was juggling at once. I rarely made time for a casual movie or dinner with my friends. I barely ever exercised, and it showed, or curled up on the couch to read a mystery story. All my favorite ways of relaxing when I was in college. Multitasking became the norm, not even relaxing during rare vacations or just taking a moment to breathe. That mindset caused me nothing but stress and anxiety and guilt, and I often felt I wasn't doing anything particularly well. Yet I refused to ask for help. Fortunately, after the reality check of dropping a ball or two, I began to understand that having it all doesn't mean doing it all. Competing on an even playing field requires you to create your own field with teammates that respect and support what it takes for you to be healthy and whole. But you see, this is where you already have an upper hand, class of 2013. You understand the importance of women supporting other women. And this lesson is going to become even more valuable as you grow older, whether at home, at work, or in your personal life. You're going to need to lean on others, and let me explain. As soon as I finally learned to ask for help, my parents were right there. I was very lucky. My dream job at the city often meant leaving early in the morning and working late at night, and my dad took my daughter to and from school every day, and my mom would read to my daughter in bed until I could rush home to tuck her in. Without their support, I could never have thrived in such a demanding job. But having women at work in whom you can confide, completely trust, and who have your back is just as important. You all know my current boss, and I'll have more to say about him in just a moment. But here's a story about an earlier boss, Mayor Daley. He's a somewhat intimidating figure to most, still is. And soon after he promoted me, he convened a meeting with a few members of his cabinet, including Susan Schur, who was a corporation counsel and one of my dearest friends, and also a single mom at the time. Throughout the meeting, we kept looking at our watches and at each other, and finally he interrupted the conversation, and he gave us one of those piercing stares, and he asked us if there was somewhere else more important that we needed to be. Well, I didn't know what to say, and I looked across at Susan, and she looked back at me, and I finally blurted out, Susan and I both have second graders, and their Halloween parade starts in 20 minutes. And it's 25 minutes away. We then braced ourselves, not having any idea what the mayor might say, but without a second's hesitation, he replied, well, then what are you doing here? Get moving. Parents, you can imagine the relief. You simply won't have the heart for the long haul if you have to sneak around or pretend that you do not have a meaningful life outside of work. But with Susan there, without Susan there, I'm not sure that I would have had the courage to speak up. And that would have been a huge mistake, which my daughter would be reminding me of to this day. My experience so long ago has always motivated me to want to consciously create an environment at work where those on my team know that I value and respect their responsibilities at home so that they are comfortable telling me what they really need in order to be whole. Susan, my cousin Kelly, who's here, who I mentioned, and a strong network of other women with whom I have worked have encouraged me, promoted me, consoled me, protected me, and been my strongest advocates when I barely had a voice of my own. And always remember, in the words of your very famous alum, Madeleine Albright, and I quote her, "There is a very special place in hell for women who do not help other women." Now, it also helps to have a support from the top. And there's no secret how I feel about my current boss. He was raised by a single mom, married a strong and gifted woman, and tries mightily to ensure that his daughters will be able to reach for the sky with the wind at their back. He takes great pride that the very first bill he signed when he became president was the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act that strengthens a woman's ability to get equal pay. And also, right off the bat in his second term, he signed the reauthorization of the Violence Against Women Act. A couple of months after first taking office, he created the White House Council on Women and Girls that I am so proud to chair. And he has prioritized appointing women to key positions from his only 2 appointments on the Supreme Court to his cabinet, including our outstanding former Secretary of State, also your alum, Hillary Clinton. He supports policies that encourage girls to take courses that will lead to careers in STEM fields. He promotes workplace flexibility by leading by example. He has made ending human trafficking a top priority, both at home and abroad. And of course, he's a relentless protector of a woman's ability to care for and control her own body, including graduates, a provision under the new Affordable Care Act that allows you to stay on your parents' insurance until you're 26. Also, under the health care plan, being a woman is no longer a pre-existing condition, which will jack up your rates. Insurance companies can no longer charge you higher premiums just because of that. And you have preventive health services, including, yes, birth control at no additional cost. So, everyone, just as you are now surrounded, and I mean surrounded, by the lifelong friends who you've made here at Wellesley, you must keep that effort up when you leave. For when life gets messy and painful, they will be the rock of support. It'll come from your family, your friends, your coworkers, in who you have invested the most precious commodity, time and love. Solid and reliable relationships are indispensable, and they are not merely sustained by checking Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. While I admit that I wish that the social media existed earlier so that I could keep up with some of my former classmates from school, there's no better substitute for a meal or a long phone call with your best friend. Whether it's the weekly brunches that Kelly and I have with some of my best girlfriends or my one-on-one dinners with my cousin Hillary, I always feel replenished and strengthened afterwards and prepared for the daunting demands that follow. Be flexible, be resilient, and pace yourselves. Our country needs you. In fact, the world needs you. Woo is right. Every last thing that you have to offer. Our challenges ahead are great, but so too are the opportunities for positive change that I know you'll create if you remember not to only minister unto, but to minister. I know that you have found your voices, class of 2013, and now there are no limits to the good you can do if only you have the courage to use them. Thank you very much. Congratulations.